Well, it's all about spaces in Hong Kong. Hello, hi, it's Joshua here. In today's video, I'll be talking about how you can find a rental apartment in one of the most densely populated places on earth. At the southeastern tip of China, Hong Kong covers the Hong Kong Island, Lantau Island, Kowloon, and the New Territories. It is the seventh largest economy in the world with a GDP of around 350 billion US dollars. It has one of the lowest corporate and personal tax in the world, with a population of about 7.39 million people living on 25% of its land. It is no wonder why Hong Kong is one of the most densely populated places on earth. If I were to ask you, what is the most expensive city to live in for 2019? Some of you will say New York, Los Angeles, or probably Vancouver or Paris, and you will be wrong. Hong Kong and Singapore are actually tied in first place. For Hong Kong though, depending on the report that you look at, this is the 5th or 7th year in a row. Hong Kong is now officially the least affordable housing market in the world. But with a vibrant nightlife, excellent healthcare system, low crime rate, how do you find a place to live in such country? So Hong Kong is roughly around 110 times smaller than New York City. It's about 1.5 times bigger than Singapore, thank goodness, and roughly about 6 times bigger than Washington DC. Now, just like every other place on earth, if you are thinking of moving to Hong Kong or you're already in Hong Kong, I would advise that you go around, spend some time, understand the area that you want to live in before deciding to find an apartment or place to live within that location. Now, generally speaking, houses are of course more expensive on Hong Kong Island. They're definitely cheaper in New Territories, and you get value for money if you decide to stay in Kowloon, which is where I'm currently living too as well. Now, I've spent about 3.5 years in Hong Kong, and based on my experience and what I've seen around the city, there are roughly 3 types of apartment that you can find. Now, there are the very old apartments that are everywhere. In the midst of new buildings, you end up seeing some very old apartment. Those apartments do not have the clubhouse facilities. And in Hong Kong, when they say clubhouse, they are referring to gym, swimming pool, indoor, outdoor court, table tennis court, basketball court, whatever recreational facilities that it may have. So for the old apartments, definitely they do not have any of those. And for some of them too as well, they do not have elevators. Then you have the ones that are a bit mid-range. It has some basic club facilities, probably half of the club facilities. For example, it may or may not have a swimming pool, but it might end up having a tennis court, for example. Of course, you have the high-end apartment that basically has everything that you need, depending on how much you have. These are the apartments, of course, that have a gym, an indoor swimming pool, an outdoor basketball court, an excellent view of the city, probably houses around the harbour that give you an excellent view of Victoria Harbour too as well. So you've spent some time looking around on the internet trying to understand all the multiple places in Hong Kong. How do you then find an apartment if you've identified an area that you want to live in? Just like every other places on earth, or most places on earth, in Hong Kong as well, there are heaps of websites where there are a lot of listings for you to go around and have a look. I think some of the popular ones that we have in Hong Kong include 3rd Street, 28 House, Room Go, Craigslist, Spacious. I'll probably just put a link for all of those underneath in the description place. The second way to find a place to as well is to rock up to the agency that is trying to get a place via an agent. Now, there are about 4 or 5 very popular agency places in Hong Kong. The good thing about them is they're literally just stacked next to each other. If you find one, you literally find all of them, depending on the area you go to. And the popular ones are Century 21, there's Centerline, there's also Midland, and sunrise property. So for me, I've never actually rented a place directly with the landlord or the house owner. I've always rented via an agent, so I might not be the best person to advise you around how that process might work if you're trying to get a place online. But however, should you decide to go via an agent, uh, they usually charge you a certain fee, which might be quite pricey too as well. Now, depending on the agency, depending on the agent that you end up finding, for some of them, you have to end up paying roughly about half of the 1 month rent that you are paying. So if you find a place that's roughly around 22,000 Hong Kong dollars, you pay about $11,000, while the house owner pays the remaining 11,000 Hong Kong dollars. Now, some agency might ask you to pay completely $22,000, but in my case, and most of the agencies that I've actually seen, that particular bill is split between both the new tenant as well as the house owner as well. Now, if you find a place and you found an agent and you like the place that you want to move into, I think there are a couple of things that they usually check for. For most of them, they ask for your Hong Kong ID. Being new to Hong Kong, you may not have that document at that time, probably still processing in the immigration office. You can provide your passport, and sometimes they might also ask for a letter of employment just to make sure that you're capable of paying rental in that apartment. Now, if the agency is happy with the documents that you've provided and you've gone through the screening process, and you both agree that you actually want the place, you end up signing a provisional contract. That is just to indicate that you have interest in the property, and the agency can stop showing that property around to all the clients. Now, in order to do that, they usually recommend you pay 1 month rent, and they give you some period between when you intend to sign the final contract and when you intend to move in to actually pay the remaining fee. Now, in Hong Kong, it's pretty standard that as part of the deposit that you put down, it's about 2 months rent. So if it's a 22,000 Hong Kong dollar a month apartment that you find, they're gonna ask you to put 44,000 Hong Kong dollars as deposit, down payment, then you pay 1 month rent. In Hong Kong as well, the contract period is usually 2 years. The first year is mandatory. It also means that you cannot break the contract within the first year. If you decide to move for whatever reason during your first year mandatory period, they will not refund your deposit. Now, the second year is an optional year. Now, within your optional year, you or the landlord can choose to evict each other. I'm not sure if I said that right, but as a tenant, you can choose to move out. Now, depending on what your contract says, you might have to give the landlord a month or 2 month notice before you move out. The landlord could choose the same thing too as well. He can choose to ask you to leave the apartment after the 1 year mandatory period. Now, there are other fees too as well that comes into play. There's usually the stamp duty. You don't have to worry about that. That is roughly just a few $100s, roughly around $100 to $300 if I can remember correctly. So that you don't have to worry about as well. But it is very important that on the contract signing day, you spend some time going through the fine print of what that contract actually says. Now, in most instances too as well, they will give you a list of everything that they have in the house. So there'll be a list of how many chairs, how many beds, how many keys, how many doors, what they have in the kitchen too as well. Spend some time cross-checking what they have in the house against that list too as well. And spend some time, like I said, understanding what those fine prints are. Damage, wear and tear, what actually constitute a position where you may not get your deposit back. If you're all happy with all that, you sign your contract, wait for the day you have to move in, and voila, you have a place. This is my first video on YouTube, so let me know in the comment section what you think. Let me know what else you want me to talk about in Hong Kong. Thank you for watching. If you love the video, give it a thumbs up. Thank you.